FMCRadio.live. This is Highway Fever. And now here's your host, Charlie Claiborne.
Hey, good evening, Tom. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, tonight we're going to be gearing up the rest of the month to talk to some legislature individuals, some staffers from these legislative offices on Capitol Hill. Our good friend Trooper Brent Hoover is going to be back. But tonight we're going to kind of gear up for a new year. Want to talk about some of the issues that we're going to be facing this year in trucking. And many of you are aware I'm a member of an organization. There are many organizations out there that have a vested interest in fighting for our rights. Doesn't matter what group you belong to, what group you decide to side with. Join a group, OIDA, NADRA, CDLU. Find some place where you fit in and fight. Fight for what's right. Because here's what we're going to be facing this year. First thing out of the gate, speed limiters. Right? We don't know where they're going to go with this. A lot of talk because of the 14,500 comments they received. Been a lot of talk on where this thing is going to fall. If you look at the data and you look at the information that safety groups have provided, that other people have petitioned for, this speed limit, I've said it at least a dozen times, it's going to fall between 65 and 70. The ATA and Chris Spears, for the first time, I find myself rooting for Chris Spears, Tom. I watched his speech on how badly things are being butchered. The ATA says nothing below 70, they won't support it. So somewhere between 65 and 70, I think, is where we're going to land. I loved watching Chris Spears talk about the California debacle and how this decision they made to handle their emissions regulations is going to backfire, and I believe it's not going to be long in the future. We're gonna see that. So speed limiters, number one. Number two, here's a topic a lot of people have been talking about lately. A lot of guys have an issue with the broker and freight regulations, the transparency bill that the FMCSA was supposed to have released. I know OIDA's been on top of them, SBTC's been on top of them. And we're still waiting on that. But the broker and freight forwarder financial responsibilities, okay? These are the changes to broker and freight forwarder financial responsibilities. There's the one thing I hope they've included in there is that you can't blacklist a person for requesting the information, right? That was a big thing. They are required by law to provide that information. Shipper, the receiver, carrier information, what the load paid, all that information is supposed to be available at your request. A lot of guys in the past have requested it and found that brokers won't work with them because they see you as a guy rocking the boat. But I'm one of those people, I'm a firm believer in it. If you don't know what's into the load, what the load actually paying, big topic, lumper fees, things like that have been popping up all over social media. So how can you negotiate in good faith if all of this isn't laid out in an easy format for people to understand, and then make sure that brokers and carriers provide that information without blackballing drivers? The next thing, automated driving systems, guys. All right? Automated driving systems. Many of you are aware that they've also opened a comment period, and we're talking about the driverless trucks. So automated driving systems are number three. Automatic emergency braking systems, right? That's on the table. And the one thing we're going to talk about tonight is the FMCSA's overhaul of the CSA points issue. So the safety and fitness procedures falls into that category. FMCSA made an announcement how they're going to lay this out, and it looks like they're going to take action on it. I have no faith in the FMCSA fixing the current model. But nonetheless, Tom, they're going to try to fix it again.
Well, that's a lot of stuff to cover, man. And I want to help you cover a lot of it. Let's start off with this. Since you made reference to the February 1st hearing of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, their first committee meeting of the year. They had 5 representatives from around transportation. Representing the entire world of trucking was one guy, Chris Spear. I'm going to put off to the side for a moment anyway that you have a committee that's called the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and you invite 5 people to speak to the representatives, and not a single one of them has ever double clutched a gearbox in their lives, and none of them know how to drive a truck, and yet these are the people who they're talking to.
And you know what was really interesting? I just quickly want to insert there. I agree 100%. There was actually an organization in D.C. that day. There was a big article about them being there. You would think that somebody would have invited those type of drivers and those type of industry people, you know, air quotes here, stakeholders. The drivers are the stakeholders, but I didn't see people like that at that hearing. I did see Chris. I can't argue with a lot of what he said because I think.
So let's go back and talk about what did he say. This takes about 4 minutes, so we're going to let this play out and let people hear what he had to say. And so we'll do this for 4 minutes. Be right back with this.
Help Congress shape it.
We have Mr. Chris Spear, who's the President and Chief Executive Officer of the American Trucking Association. Thanks for being here.
Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, and members of this committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. For 90 years, the ATA has helped Congress shape its understanding of our nation's infrastructure needs and supply chain challenges, and today's oversight is both welcome and timely. The IIJA provided a 38% increase in road and bridge funding, a historic investment not witnessed since the Eisenhower era. Prior to passage, ATA testified 25 times before the House and Senate, sharing how the decaying state of our nation's infrastructure is hamstringing America's ability to compete with rising global powers like China. In short, a first world economy cannot survive a developing world infrastructure. While the ATA strongly supported the IIJA, it was not a perfect piece of legislation. No bill is. This hearing provides oversight of $1.2 trillion of taxpayer-earned income. An industry that makes up just 4% of the vehicles on our nation's highways, yet pays nearly half the tab into the Federal Highway Trust Fund. We ask that every dollar be spent wisely and in accordance with what Congress instructed. To that end, ATA objects to the Federal Highway Administration's memorandum directing the IIJA monies be spent on existing roads and bridges and not new construction. Not only does this directly conflict with congressional intent, it does nothing to address congestion, improve safety, and reduce emissions. Our industry loses nearly $75 billion a year sitting in congestion annually. That's 425,000 drivers sitting idle every year. That's 6.87 billion gallons of fuel, more than $34 billion of wasted energy. That's 67.3 million metric tons of CO2 being pumped into our environment. Let me be clear. Funding existing infrastructure alone does nothing to fix congestion. It just makes it worse. Congress has proven that it can do the right thing. Passage of the Ocean Shipping Reform Act, passage of the CHIPS Act. We need more of this. We need new, secure truck parking capacity as proposed by the bipartisan Truck Parking Safety and Improvement Act. We need a greater emphasis on our workforce. The IIJA, including elements of the bipartisan Drive Safe Act, will do what none of the 49 states have done, requiring training and technology for young talent to operate our equipment. What the IIJA didn't do is require inward-facing cameras, opposed by drivers young and old, union and non-union. Requiring a company camera be in a driver's workspace every minute of every hour, including the sleeper berth, is intrusive, disrespectful, It opens a prying door into the other transportation modes. Your oversight is warranted. Lastly, we need a realistic discussion about our nation's energy and environmental policies. For 4 decades, ATA has worked with the EPA, producing phases 1 and 2 emissions reduction rules. To date, 98.5% of all emissions have been removed from our tailpipes. In fact, 60 trucks today emit what one truck emitted in 1988. This is not a matter of if we get to zero, but when. And we will get there, just not on the timelines being proposed in California. Their rush to zero makes their timeline and targets unachievable, and they will fail. The rare minerals needed for millions of 5,000-pound truck batteries, the infrastructure needed to charge them, and the additional electricity needed to power our trucks, full scale, doesn't yet exist and won't anytime soon. Again, we're committed to a cleaner environment. We've proven that. We simply ask we be realistic about the path forward. Do that, and we'll have the best infrastructure and the strongest, most sustainable economy like no other. I thank the committee and yield.
So I'm like you. I thought, hey, great opening words. Yeah, good stuff there. So let's look at that. Let's talk about that. And I got some questions for you on the other side of the break about some of the other things that are happening up there on the Hill, as they say, including a very interesting tactic, procedural tactic put in just within the last couple of hours to stall out some of the work the EPA is trying to do that would, greatly impact the world of trucking. So we'll talk about all of that coming up in just a few minutes. This is Highway Fever, and your host, Charlie Claiborne. We'll be right back. TNCRadio.live. Stay right there.
This info blog on TNCRadio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. Mental health resources for truck drivers. Truck drivers are the backbone of America. They're the unsung heroes. Nearly every good consumed in the United States has been transported in a truck. Because of how challenging truck driving is, truck drivers often portray the image of being tough. Mental health is not a discussion that many truckers will have among each other. The truth is, truck drivers are human. They have their emotional and mental struggles just like every other working American. The only difference is that truck drivers face unique factors that put them more at risk for depression and other serious mental health issues. According to the Transport Workers Union, 1 in 5 truck drivers has experienced mental health issues. Depression and anxiety are the top mental issues that truck drivers face. Mental health resources for truck drivers. With truck drivers spending more time on the road than at home, it can be difficult to get help for their mental health struggles. Now, thanks to modern-day technology, truck drivers can get help right from their smartphones. Esper. Esper is a national behavioral health company with a mission to help people and organizations reach their full potential. Esper offers a continuum of behavioral health care from acute to chronic health conditions to leadership development, including Fit to Pass, a coaching program to assist professional drivers in maintaining good health and pass their DOT recertification physical exams. BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the world's largest e-counseling platform. They have access to licensed, trained, experienced, and accredited psychologists, marriage and family therapists, clinical social workers, and board-licensed professional counselors. To get starters, take a quick questionnaire and BetterHelp will match you with a therapist that's right for you. Mutts for Trucks. Mutts for Trucks is an organization that helps truck drivers find the perfect four-legged friend for the road. Their mission is to bring more good to a community that brings so much good to us. It's been proven that owning a dog can drastically decrease isolation, depression, and cardiovascular disease. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is a national network of local crisis centers that provides free and confidential emotional support to people in suicidal crisis or emotional distress 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Their number is 1-800-848-4848. 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. If you feel that you need help for your mental health struggles while on the road, we also recommend reaching out to your carrier and seeing what options they may have available for you. For more information on mental health, go to the blog section at The Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Remember to tune into the Truckers Network radio show with Shelley Johnson, weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
I'm Ron Samuels. We put it in reverse gear so you can enjoy the history of popular music and hear the soundtrack of life Wednesdays at 8 Eastern and 7 Central, right after the train station on TNCRadio.live.
Welcome back in TNC Radio.live. This is Highway Fever. And here's Charlie Claiborne.
So Tom, I'm not going to let you slide back on this one. This show is going to be a little bit interesting because you said you had some questions. You have some opinions. You're a supporter of every driver out there. You support our industry, and you had some things on your mind, and we agreed that tonight's show was going to go that direction. So I'm going to let you load up the shotgun and fire away, brother.
Well, I am a supporter. You know what they say: if you can't play it, coach it. If you can't coach it, ref it. If you can't ref it, be an athletic supporter.
I have heard that.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Light chuckles in the background. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to look at here, and you know, it's. I don't know whether we're just doing a better job reporting on all this right now, or whether my sense is true that we really are in a position to have a lot happen in the industry. I mean, there's a lot happening right now. So yesterday, the FMCSA, in their wisdom, if you can call it that, are wanting to talk about readjusting the way they do safety scores and all that kind of stuff, which, look, at a certain level, who cares, in the sense of if they don't enforce and if they don't get to where the real issues are, they are very much fiddling while Rome burns. And so I want to come back to that in a minute. Today, a group of GOP senators, let's see, how many are we up to now? As of press time here, I think we're up to 36 senators today, are in the process, 34 senators right now. They're in the process of essentially an administrative procedural move. This is led by Deb Fischer, Republican out of Nebraska, and her GOP colleagues are in part of an ongoing effort to undo aspects of the Biden administration rulemaking under the EPA that will essentially put a clamp on all sorts of additional emissions, and all of this to begin with the model year 2027, essentially making it nearly impossible for a mom and pop organization to own a new truck within the next couple of years. Yeah, I mean, the cost of the truck itself would just be astronomical. So on the 9th, she put out the statement. Today is the 16th, so it usually takes a week for this stuff to roll through. And basically, they're going to make it impossible for the Senate. The Senate has a lot of procedural stuff that you got to do. Okay, they're more process oriented than any organization on earth, and so if you know how to play that process, you can gum up the works pretty easily, and that's what they're in the process of doing. In her note out to the other senators, just quote here, this aggressive EPA rule, which will hit mom and pop truck operations the hardest, is also ineffective because it incentivizes operators to keep using older, higher emitting trucks for longer. During a period of high inflation and supply chain disruption, the last thing this country needs is more expensive freight costs and fewer trucks. Well, duh. Right? So that's going on. You got the FMCSA stuff going on. You got these new committees that have been formed, and Chris Spear is making the rounds. He was in front of the House of Representatives last week. He's in front of the Senate this week. Essentially used the same opening statement in both, and is in no without no holds barred going after California, the AB5 stuff, the CARB stuff, everything from California. I love his "they will fail," so like something out of a movie.
The funny part is for him to have that sort of conviction against CARB's rules. Here's the thing: where were they? Let's go back Let's go back 4 years, just 4 years, because we know it was longer than that. Where was the ATA and all these groups? You could have predicted this exact scenario 4 years ago, and in fact, people like Western State Trucks and Joe Rockevatz out there in California. They told them exactly what was going to happen to the supply chain, how it was going to affect businesses. I think sometimes they're a little late, but I think that there's some very motivated people on Capitol Hill at the moment that are going to do exactly what you said. They're going to find ways to block, stop, or make federal movements to turn back a lot of this costly. The expense that the industry absorbs, like these new trucks, the new emissions. It'd be great if we could all go out and buy a new truck that met the emissions requirements. But as you know, I'm sitting at a Kenworth dealership right now because I have a brand new truck, a 2023 Kenworth, and with all the upgrades and the emissions and the digital this and the emissions that, my truck has no power. They can't tell me why it doesn't have any power, but the filter's plugged. Something's not getting DEF, something's not happening. And we have about 118 trucks. And at any time, we have 4 to 5 trucks a week that are in a shop for emissions issues. So, I mean, what we're gonna make new trucks affordable, but they're still going to be costly. So, I mean, I take issue with that statement that she wants to make them affordable. How about they make them work first, and then we'll worry about buying?
Well, yeah, there's that too.
But they're again, Chris Spears, I'm not going to badmouth him or the ATA because everybody should be in this fight. I just wish that more people, let's say the stakeholders, I said this a million times, the stakeholders are the drivers and the people in this industry. They're the ones that don't seem to get their voice heard. And you can come up with a million reasons why, but I have yet to see small organizations have an opportunity to testify before Congress. You can go down, knock on doors, you can have Zoom meetings, you can do all kinds of things. But are you able to address the committee as an organization representing small business truckers or drivers in our industry? I have yet to see that happen.
No, I agree. So can we pick on the FMCSA for just a minute?
Oh, I've been waiting. That's why there's a lull in the sound here, because that was the next thing.
Yeah, So okay, so let's go. I'm looking now at the FMCSA.dot.gov newsroom. Okay, so these are the press releases that they've put out in the last year. Here's one. FMCSA declares Connecticut motor carrier to be an imminent hazard to public safety. Here's another. FMCSA declares Texas motor carrier to be an imminent hazard. Here's another and another. So they go through and they, for whatever reason, usually it's after a horrible accident in which multiple people have been killed or something along those lines. Let's see. I'm just picking one of these at random here, which is probably a dangerous thing to do. Right here in Houston, JPL Logistics LLC. JPL Logistics LLC. This is last May 27th. A motor carrier located in Houston, Texas, to be an imminent hazard to public safety and order the motor carrier to immediately cease all interstate and intrastate operations. The motor carrier was served the federal order on May 31st, 2022. So this is from a guy named... So this is what they do. JPL Logistics was declared an imminent hazard after FMCSA determined that it began operating as JPER Logistics, so it could avoid the imminent hazard order that went to JPER Logistics on May the 7th. So JPL is just, they closed up one shop, they opened it up, and this time FMCSA figured it out. Okay, they don't always figure it out.
You know, and the thing is, the whole point of the CSA scoring system was to recognize carriers and drivers that were an imminent threat to public safety.
But here's the problem.
They failed.
Here's the problem I have with that. You know who that works on? The people who are following the rules.
Every time.
The people who actually give a crap. Those people are the ones who end up paying the price here. The guy who doesn't want to follow the rules, the guy who set up an organization that looks legit, but it turns out he's got 10 trucks, not a single CDL holder among the drivers. He's out there running them all the time. They avoid every checkpoint. They know every trick in the book. They're bringing in things from other countries and people from other countries. They're doing all this crap out there on the roads, making the entire industry look very, very dangerous. All of that's going down all the time. And the FMCSA wants to flap its wings and talk about how they're going to adjust the scoring on the safety stuff to get it just right now. Shut up! Right now, do you know that the maximum fine? So let's say I've got you hired out there. No, let's flip it around. You've got me hired out there because I don't have a CDL license. You've got me hired out there, and I'm out there driving truck right now, and I get caught. Where do I go? I go to jail. Where do you go?
Back to work in the morning.
You get a $10,000 fine. What the hell do you care? You got 10 trucks, a $10,000 fine. You'll make that up in 10 days.
Risk reward, right? These
Risk
criminals
reward.
decide what's the risk and what's the reward, and they're not afraid to take the risk.
And the owner of the place, so the FMCSA says, we're giving you an order. You're not allowed to do that anymore. No, bad dog. Get down off the couch. Bad. And that's it. Nobody seizes the equipment. Nobody seizes all the assets. Nobody comes in there and raids the place and says, we're stopping this and you're never going to be able to operate again because we're taking away everything that makes you successful. Instead, they spend all this time, all this energy. We're going to go through this rule period. You've got till May 31st to... you come talk to us when we're at Matt's. We're going to be open and want to hear what your thoughts are around the safety. You know what my thoughts are? Go fix the people who are out there illegally operating every single day. Get them off the streets. Then let's have a discussion about whether or not we need to refine and retool some of this crap that's out here with the safety stuff right now. It makes no sense whatsoever to just, they're a toothless tiger. The only people they
It's
can
the-
hurt are the people who they want to help, but that they should be helping.
It's the whole use absurdity to explain absurdity thing, and the FMCSA does that on a daily basis. They do the most absurd things without taking anything into consideration. And we come back from the break. I want to talk a little bit about, just like you're saying, what you're talking about here is a lot of these things they do. They're really, what they're doing is they're fixing a rule they already made by making another rule to fix the rule they already made. And if they hadn't made the rule to begin with, we wouldn't be having these problems.
But what
Our
are they
service,
fixing?
the ELD thing, right? I thought we had this whole ELD device thing squashed, but I see they removed 2 more from the list and told drivers to switch to paper.
And why won't they answer the press's question about that too? Let's talk.
So
about
2
that
more
when we come back.
devices have been removed.
Yeah, let's talk about that because the press is asking them a question they're not answering, and we need an answer. So we'll talk about that. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to TNC Radio.live. That is Charlie Claiborne, and this is Highway Fever.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. I'm an old dad with young kids, and sometimes, because I love them so much, they manipulate they manipulate me a lot. And I give in, and I end up doing things or giving things that I probably shouldn't. In fact, what I'm doing is I'm enabling them. Well, how do you know the difference between enabling and helping? Well, my rule of thumb is this. If you're ever doing something for someone that they could or should be doing for themselves, there's a really good chance you're enabling. If they're doing everything they can, the best they can do, and you assist them, you're probably helping them. Leo Buscaglia was a famous professor at the University of Southern California. And he had a very loving relationship with his mother. In fact, she called him Felice, or happy. And Leo tells a story about when he decided to take all of his money and head to Italy with the guys and just have a wonderful time while his mother was back in the States. And at some point, predictably, he ran out of money. And back in the day, there was no internet, and he was looking for the cheapest way to send a message back home to get his mother's assistance. And so he used a telegram. And a telegram charges you by the letter, so he wanted his message to be brief. And so he wrote, "Mom, starving, Leo." And his mother took 24 hours to think this over because she loved Leo. And finally, she wrote him back and she said, "Felice, starve, Mom." She didn't want her son to starve. She wanted him to finally learn to be a grown-up. So she finally pulled the plug on that. Leo says that mother said that was the hardest thing she ever did and the most loving thing she could ever do for her kids. And for me, I got to figure out how to do the same thing.
Be sure to listen to Building Strong Minds with Dr. Chris, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, right here on tncradio.live.
Do you have the TNCRadio.live app? It's free and easy to download. Just go to app.tncradio.live, Google Play, or the App Store. Get access to live streaming radio developed by drivers for drivers. Download the TNCRadio.live app today. TNCRadio.live. your commercial driver navigation station.
We're all about the news, information, entertainment, talk radio, music, comedy, and topics truckers want to hear. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. We're talking with retired NASA engineer Homer Hickam, who's the author of Rocket Boys, which inspired the movie October Sky. We're talking with Alex Debogorski. He's one of the original stars of Ice Road Truckers. Chip Davis of Mannheim Steamroller, music icon and Grammy Award-winning country artist Lee Greenwood. We're speaking with racing legend Mario Andretti. Michael Martin Murphey is a legend on the music scene with wonderful ballads and hits like Wildfire and Cowboy Logic. Curtis Grimes.
Michael McDowell, the 2021 Daytona 500 winner.
Our guest this afternoon is Tom Bodett. You know the name, you know the voice.
The Carolina Monkey Gouger, Jimmy Artis. Today we have the honor of speaking again with Long Haul Paul. Today we have Claire Dunn and Logan Mize with us. Stay tuned and stay safe with TNCRadio.live.
Welcome back in TNCRadio.live. This is Highway Fever, and that is Charlie Claiborne.
Hey guys, welcome back in. As you can see tonight, there's a bunch of regulatory issues that are on the table. And what Tom was alluding to before the break is very simply put, the FMCSA in the very beginning did not have an approval process for the devices that we were going to use for ELDs. Through a process of elimination, they got rid of some, right, Tom? But what's the issue that you have? You were alluding to the whole. They asked a question, the press and journalists, and the FMCSA is not answering it. So, what kind of red flags does that raise in your mind?
Well, I mean, anytime the press asks the government a question, they don't answer it. That's a red flag. I don't care what the subject is. Okay. Now, obviously, national security. Okay, duh. But you know, even then, there are some questions that are appropriate and need to be answered. The simple question is this: what are you doing? What is it about these 5 ELDs that got them knocked off? I mean, yes, there's a major issue when you set the whole thing up to self-justify whether or not it's meeting the requirements or not. I mean, that's stupid. But okay, so how didn't they meet the requirements? What else? What other ELDs are out there? Are you shooting to knock down 50 of them? Is it just these 5 and you're done? What are we doing here?
What's the reason? What's the reason? And they're not going to give you the reason because I told you, in my opinion, I'm going to allude to this fact is that some of these devices have been found to be easily manipulated, right? And they've been found through audits or some other source of information, and now they're taking action. But they were always that way. And there are devices, as I told you earlier, I know for a fact that are being edited by companies that are using that software. But are they gonna come out and tell you that they failed? That these things shouldn't have been self-certified, that there should have been some sort of plan in place to make sure that all these devices met the same requirements? No, because they screwed up. They dropped the ball. That's why they're not going to tell you.
Well, they don't have to confess to anything other than what is it about these devices that causes it to fail now? Because if you would tell us, for one thing, we know not to buy devices that do that, because look, who's losing in this? Okay, at the end of the day, it's the same loser as always. It's going to be on the back of the driver or his small company or whatever, who has to go out now and buy a whole new device and get it installed and get it put together and all. Yeah, they give you a little leeway here, and you're not supposed to be written up if you're using a paper log while you're getting a new one, blah, 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 blah. Again, at the end of the day, who ends up eating this? It's the driver. Okay? Or his small. Always. And my question is, okay, what do we need to know so we don't buy the right or the wrong thing, or can go ahead and make the switch now because we know it's coming on this particular device. What's going on? And they're being all FMCSA, and
But they should have done that from the very beginning. They should have done that from the very beginning. This was never thought out. It was never articulated. It was never done right. They should have had these requirements for these devices in place before they put the mandate in place, and they didn't. So the fact that we're having a conversation about it now tells you how well the FMCSA has accomplished 90% of the missions that they've set out on. Whether it be the speed limiter issue, broker transparency issue, underrides. I mean, the hours of service. Tom, for example, can we agree that 14 hours is 14 hours?
Well, except when it's not 14 hours.
But it's a 14-hour clock is 14 hours. So if at the end of the day, I can't work beyond 14 hours, right? I can only drive 11, can only work a maximum of 14. So let's say this is all about safety, reducing fatigue, saving lives. Those are the three top things to remember. So let's say I start my day, I drive for 7 hours, okay? I spend 4 hours sitting at a dock. That's 11, right? So now I can drive. I have time left that I can drive. But how many hours? I've worked 11-hour day. That's more than the average person works on an 8-hour 9-to-5 job. So I've been awake and worked roughly 13 hours. I've been up. I've worked 11 so far, but I can work up to 14. So I can still drive. So I'm tired, but legally I can drive. So I get in the truck and I drive. Now, let's say the following day, I don't have to load anywhere. I don't have to do anything. Why am I only limited to 11 hours that I can drive? If I can only work 14, why does it matter if it's really about fatigue? Because some people are cut from different cloth. Why can't I drive what my clock allows me to drive? Why does the FMCSA think that this has anything to do with safety when people are working and driving up to the end of that shift and still driving 2 hours, 3 hours, 1 hour, whatever it is, exhausted, leaving a shipper or receiver?
Because the man is going to have his thumb on you, and he's going to make you work all this overtime, and you're not going to get paid for it, and you're going to have to work so many extra hours because you're going to be forced to by your boss. But that's okay. They're here to save you.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Until they do something about the pay structure and the way truck drivers are paid in this country, every mile I can drive that I'm safe, I'm a safe driver. I've been doing this 32 years, 4 million accident-free miles, all kinds of state driving awards, okay? Never had an accident, never had a ticket, never failed a DOT. I know that I could get behind the wheel of a truck and drive for 12, 13 hours, take a break in between, half-hour break, take a nap, and then drive my clock. But until they start paying me for all the time I can't work, who are they to tell me what to do with my 14 hours? If it's really about safety, if it's really about those issues, what the hell does it matter if I'm driving 11 one day and I'm driving 13 the next day?
No, you're missing the point. You see, they're saving you. They're keeping you from being ruined by your evil empire boss who is going to drive you into the ground by making you work all this time. They are protecting you from these evil bosses, these dispatchers who will make you work 16 hours without a break. You won't even be allowed to go to the bathroom. That's what they're going to do to you, but we're here to save you. We're from the government.
Oh, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
I didn't. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, see, that's the problem is you guys don't understand that, the FMCSA is, we're going to protect, just like the PRO Act, AB 5, and everything. They're going to protect all these people who are independent contractors who aren't getting a fair shake because they're independent contractors.
Oh, you mean the same guys that are now trying to figure out how they're going to feed their family and pay their bills, because not only can they not operate their business because they leased onto a carrier and failed the requirement, but now their truck, because it doesn't meet the emissions rules, they don't have a truck to drive to feed their families. You mean that kind of looking out, that kind of taking care of the trucker? Is that what you're talking about?
Because again, people are going to take advantage of you if we don't put in these rules. And so you were misclassified, but now you're properly classified. No, you can't work. We understand that, but at least you're classified properly.
Oh, see,
So
you got me again.
Don't you
I
feel
did
better?
not realize
Don't
that.
you feel better, even though that you can't work now, and you're not quite sure how you're going to pay this month's mortgage, and you're not quite sure how you're going to take care of Timmy and the insulin and all that? That's okay, because they've got you covered, because you're properly classified now.
So while we're on this roll, the absurdity that we have a 14-hour rule that says you can't work beyond 14 hours, but you can't find a truck parking space because for every 11 trucks, there's only one truck. But you have to comply with the rule. You have to stop. You have to be parked, but you can't find a safe place to park. So that rule makes sense too, right? They're protecting us on that.
Yeah, you bet.
I got you.
So again, I get a little bit tired of the FMCSA saying, and look, I'm a guy reporting on this stuff who's sitting there watching all this stuff. I'm watching them try to manipulate the day-to-day activities of the people who are willing to follow the rules rather than go after the people who are not following the rules, who are obviously cheating the whole system. And instead of putting all their efforts and resources, look, I said to you half jokingly but half serious, why don't you go after these guys? And when you seize their assets, the FMCSA gets to keep it and pump it into safety programs.
Absolutely.
Put them out of business. Take all
ladies and
their
gentlemen,
cash.
If this is any indication how this show's going to go for the rest of the year, ladies and gentlemen, Highway Fever is going to be hot, on point, on target. We're going to have these discussions, and we're going to have them here on TNC Radio, on my show. This is Charlie Claiborne, Highway Fever, here on TNC Radio. We'll be right back after a quick break.
This infoblog on tncradio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 4 things truck drivers need to know about motor truck cargo insurance. Motor truck cargo legal liability insurance, also referred to as cargo insurance, covers the loss or damage to the freight you're hauling. When hauling cargo, there's always a risk that it could be damaged or stolen. While there are no legal requirements to have cargo insurance, it is highly recommended to better protect yourself and the goods you're hauling. What is cargo insurance? Cargo insurance protects you from financial loss if the freight you're hauling gets damaged or lost. In the event of an accident, cargo insurance pays for the amount you're insured for only if the event is covered. Cargo damage resulting from collision, accidents, fire, and spoilage are examples of covered events in most cargo policies. Benefits of cargo insurance. When hauling cargo, someone's paying you to safely deliver someone's assets from point A to point B. The main benefit of motor truck cargo insurance is that you reduce financial loss if the cargo you're hauling gets damaged. Also, purchasing cargo insurance gives you a peace of mind knowing that you're covered if your cargo gets damaged. How is cargo premium determined? The motor truck cargo rate depends on the type of cargo you're hauling. The classifications include dry van freight, flatbed freight, refrigerated freight or reefer, autos, household goods mover, and hazmat. As there are many different cargo classifications for a motor carrier, discuss with your agent the type of freight you intend on hauling. Insurance carriers generally classify motor carriers with the highest commodities hauled. So even if you only intend to haul autos 5% of the time and 95% of the time flatbed freight, your premium will be based on an auto hauler. This is why it's so important to talk with your agent about everything you'll be hauling. This ensures that the policy is written the correct way and excludes nothing that you intend to haul. Nobody wants to be stuck with a cargo claim commodity that's not covered under their policy. Please note that the coverages, limits, and explanations of coverages mentioned here can differ with every motor truck cargo policy, depending on the type of cargo hauled and carrier requirements. Please discuss what is included and what can be added on or endorsed to your policy or quote with your current agent. What limits are you required to carry? There are many factors that determine the cargo limit a motor carrier should carry. Unlike commercial auto liability, generally the shipper who owns the freight will provide you with a minimum limit required to haul a load for them, not the federal government. The standard limit of cargo insurance for general freight is $100,000, but this limit can differ. For example, if a carrier is an auto hauler, his cargo limit could be anywhere from $150,000 to $1 million depending on the number of autos hauled and the auto's conditions. This info blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
Hi, I'm Hope Savara. Join us every Monday on TNC Radio Live at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's Building Strong Minds.
Hot Shots Secret presents Steve Summers' Overnight Drive nightly at midnight Eastern, 11 Central on TNCRadio.live or download the app .tncradio.live.
Welcome back in TNC Radio.live. This is Highway Fever. Here's Charlie Claiborne. Charlie, we've only got about 2.5, 3 minutes left at the best. How do you want to wrap things up tonight, sir?
I just want to remind everybody that we barely scratched the surface on what we're going to face this year when it comes to trucking regulatory issues, when it comes to solving our problems. And I want to remind everybody, every organization out there can only do what they can do together to make a difference. We need more organizations. I'm proud of my organization. We had some bumps in the road, but we are going to come back even stronger. We're going to keep the fight, just like I suggest every one of you does. Focus on the issues, get out there, find guidance where you can find it, find support where you can find it, get engaged in the conversation, and start talking about these things. Start taking some action. You'd be surprised what an email or your voice or a phone call can accomplish. Surround yourself with people that want to see positive change in the industry. Surround yourself with people that are willing to say, there's a problem and we need it fixed. And here on Highway Fever, we're going to discuss the hard issues. We're not going to shy away. And like I said, we've only scratched the surface. So thank you for joining us here on Highway Fever. My producer, Tom, awesome guy, great co-host tonight, Tom. Thank you. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you for supporting our industry. And ladies and gentlemen, we will be back here, Highway Fever, on TNCRadio.live next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Stay safe, stay blessed, and we'll see you next week.